morning. My name is Mario and I'm your host, Pietro Faccio. I'm happy, very, very happy to bring this story to you. The story of Hind Toufga, a Nordic Games EMEA representative who is involved also with women in games. But obviously, the beautiful part of all this interview was her story, a story of redemption, a story in which video games has saved a life. From her upbringing in Morocco and Libya, she managed to escape from that sort of culture and coming up on top. And now she's super happy living in Sweden, but she hasn't forgotten where she comes from. So please listen to this. And tell me if this was not probably the most beautiful story that you heard in the video game industry. Here it goes. Good morning, everyone. I'm finally here with Hind. I already put on there on LinkedIn few hints about meeting with Hind. Sorry for the problem with the word. But I'm finally here in Stockholm. I managed to arrive and I want to welcome Hind. So Hind Toufga, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here today with you and to speak about this amazing story that you were so excited to hear from me personally. So yeah. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and I am super excited. Honestly, I already mentioned to you, put something on LinkedIn or some other social media about the stories. The truth is that I did not know about you until a month and a half ago when I first wrote to you. And so I didn't know you. I didn't know what you were doing. I didn't know your story. But then someone like a good friend of mine that works, I was working in Poland, now I moved back to Italy. She's Italian. She mentioned that I should definitely contact you. I should definitely listen to your story. And then I thought, okay, just tell me something about her. She said that she watched you live on some presentation because you also present your story in.
Yes.
At events, right?
Yeah, it was in Amsterdam last summer. And I think she was one of the audience. And a lot of people heard the story and liked it, and they encouraged me to speak more about it. And they said a lot of people need to hear this, the effect of games on our culture and on people. And that's how I started trying to expand and trying to make the story heard as much as possible after hearing this encouragement from the audience.
Okay.
And of course, your friend.
So okay, but that was your first time, or was already?
Well, it wasn't really the first time. It was the first time outside of Sweden. But before that, it was in Malmö in Nordic Games, and then before that was in the north of Sweden because it started a lot of people heard about. From the pandemics that gaming and the game industry boomed, and a lot of people were interested to hear more about games, since some statistics showed that music and film industry didn't make that much money like the game industry during the pandemic. Yeah. And everybody wanted, okay, what is games? We want to meet people working with games, especially when they hear there's a woman working with games and coming from the Middle East. A lot of people wanted to hear my story. How come? When did you start? How come you chose this path? And so on. Yeah. So that's what the start was there in the north. Okay. In the north, in my city where I live in Sundsvall.
In Sundsvall,
yes.
Which is east, west.
It's in the middle of Sweden.
It's the middle of Sweden.
By the coast, yes.
Is that a nice place?
Yes, it is. It is very nice. The nature is amazing. Very quiet little city. It's a good place to live. If you want a quiet life, it's the perfect place to live.
That's what I'm aiming at, but probably not in a very recent future, but still need to work in a city. But I think at some point, yeah.
Well, if you work remotely, because for me, I work remotely and I've also studied remotely. It's never been a problem actually, because you could travel so easy from my city to Stockholm. You can catch a flight. There's also an airport in there, so it's easy for me to travel around. I've never found that as an issue. I work remotely, and if I need to be in a conference or have a meeting somewhere, I just travel so easily from there. We have a fast train, so
okay.
Yeah.
Fast trains, especially, they're quite good here in Sweden.
Yeah, and especially my hack is usually I take the night train. Then I wake up in the morning somewhere else. It's usually night train, and then I take the early flight, and yeah.
That's a business life hack, definitely. Thank you for that. We're gonna try to use it, but let's do like a step back. First of all, so we already heard something about her. Of course, either you know her or she just mentioned a few things. She's from the Middle East, but let's first say that we would like to thank also the owner of this restaurant here in Stockholm. We were looking for a place, and I guess is a friend of yours.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The name of the restaurant, I need to ask you because it's not that easy.
Well, I reached out to my friend Martin, the owner of the restaurant, and I said I'm looking for tips for place to record. And he was just like very welcoming, and he was like, yeah, how about filming in my place? And I felt like that's amazing, because I cannot invite you right now to the north to see where I live, and this is a little mini north feeling, It feels like sitting in a cabin in in the north. It has this like traditional Swedish feeling, because Stockholm is a nice city, but if you really want to see Sweden, the real Sweden, you have to travel up north.
Like always, right? Like in every country.
Yeah.
Okay, and the name of the restaurant? Do you want to say?
Knut.
Knut.
I think it's a name of a person, and I think this name is Nordic and even German, from what I have heard.
Yeah.
So, a person name, and I think it's the name of the grandfather of the owner of the the restaurant. Yeah, but it's So now you know.
Okay, so thank you, owner. Thank you also, grandfather of the owner of Knut. I hope I say it properly.
Yeah.
Let's begin because I find your story incredible. Mm-hmm. In many ways I relate. So what I understood. So let's go step by step. Let's start from. Let's try to have a timeline from you were born in Morocco.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then you moved to Libya.
Yes, I was, I think, between 5 and 6. My parents moved to Libya for work. And I grew up in Libya. I started school in Libya. So in terms of like Moroccan culture, I'm not very familiar with my own.
Okay.
So I grew up in Libya until the war. And Libya is quite different than Morocco because of the culture. Many people know Gaddafi and know that how the government and everything was there. It was like quite limited. I don't want to go into the politics, but it as a culture, it's very limited in terms of media. We didn't have like cinemas, for example. There was like no. I don't remember I've seen any libraries or open libraries. Like all the media and everything we got to learn was controlled by the government. Exactly. So and add upon that being a female, a female in certain culture, it was kind of like very limited until games came into my life, and that was I think I was around 7, and all of us gamers now in my I would say in my generation. 7 years ago, I'm 37 now, so this is like 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. We all started with I think Atari and Sega, and then upgraded to PlayStation 1, and so I had the privilege coming from I would say middle class family. I had the privilege to own these kind of like games, because some people, this is also one of the stuff that people will be, but you grew up in the Middle East and North Africa. I would say, okay, how popular was games back then? For me, as I said, I was lucky that my father was a good provider when it comes to creativity. So I had my hands on these games, and I actually going back to the culture in particular religions or particular cultures, the girls has to be indoor, and boys could go out and play, and you could play football, you could do all kind of
You
activities.
do everything.
All kind of like, physical activities. For me, it was more like domestic tasks and stuff like that I should learn as a girl from what the culture is expecting from me to be in the future. Except when games came in, so I found myself playing these games with, I could play like golf, I could play, shooting, I could play tennis, I could play billiardo, and all these kind of games through a little screen, these 90s TV, how they were. So I had this like little portal to the world, to all the activities I could do visually. So my body maybe didn't move that much, but my brain was experiencing these activities. So yeah, so it started there in the 90s, and as I mentioned, since the culture had its barriers, for me, I learned, like during those years, I learned English. I think I recall having better English than my own teacher, and I was like correcting her during classes, and sometimes she also like asked me, and she assumed that I had a relative or something from the US or from England, and I couldn't say that it was the games, because or she assumed also that I was traveling a lot, but through my screen I was actually traveling. So I remember playing these games where you could, if you remember Street Fighter, you could play if you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad we're close in generation that I could speak about this. So each match you could be like Japan, and you could be in the US, and you could be in India and Thailand, and for me it would be like, oh, this is how they're dressed in Thailand, oh, this is how they are in Vietnam, and so for me it was like this portal, because I couldn't see these things in TV or in magazines or whatever, but I had access to the world through this little portal of gaming. And so it helped me. Gaming helped me with geography, helped me with language, helped me with navigating, like learning how to be strategic in thinking and having fast reactions. I remember my shooting and all that, all those games that it doesn't have to be violent shooting. There was also this, I don't know what they called, where they throw stuff and you have to shoot it. I think there's an...
you mean like the proper, like, yes, I also I understand. Let's sport, they throw it, boom,
exactly,
and then they need to shoot it.
And I remember I was very good at that too. So, so for me, games was also, when it comes to psychology, I felt like I grew up in Libya as an immigrant because I was from Morocco. And in school, I remember in the first years, I didn't speak like the locals. So as soon as I spoke differently, like I could be like bullied in school, and I had like some challenges between other kids. And I was also different because of the gaming. My character was different because I felt like other kids were more, I don't know, I would not say, the only word I could use is that I was more nerdy and a geek than everybody else, because maybe only the kids who played games were a little bit like me, but most of them were boys, male. So so I had this kind of different mentality, and I noticed that earlier, and this became quite a challenge, being different in your surroundings. So the only place where I could feel myself and be related to and feel like I could experience stuff that I couldn't experience outside, being imagine like all summer holiday you're indoors, all the weekends, and so I had this like little bubble that I was living in, and being bullied and having challenges at home by my parents being separated anyway. So the only confident boost I remember was through the games, because every time I felt this, you win and you're great, and all that. I haven't heard those things quite a lot, being always the bullied kid and the challenging child, So I was always like, I was kind of like a little bit more wild as a kid. So I've always heard like, keep it down, don't move a lot, don't do this, don't do that. And in the games I could do everything. I could clatter, I could, now I'm using other Swedish words. I could jump, and I could like kick, and I could shoot people and or shoot stuff. Anyway, so I had it was like my expression of my anger and my my frustration.
But one question I had for you is because you said, middle class, and then you said video games. But why did that happen? So why your father, differently than any other father, would put in front of you a video game and say, like, here, play a video game, right? Why? Why is that?
Well, I have to go back to this character thing that I have. I was like kind of more boyish in my character. And maybe my father found that very intimidating. So the only good way for him to keep me down and keep me calm and not going outside and causing trouble or whatever. So it was just give her the games she needs, give her everything, keep her mind stimulated. And just to keep her calm and keep her down, because otherwise I was very like a little troublemaker and I was questioning a lot. And
and maybe also the surrounding was better to keep you inside and calm rather than going outside and do it.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So so this is because of this thing that you're not fitting in socially. Like my mentality, how I was as a kid, I didn't fit in a lot, and maybe that was a good solution for them to just keep me busy playing. And at the same time, I think at that time they didn't know how good games was for me as a child. They just saw the part of it that I was busy playing, and that's it.
Okay.
But later on, my father found out that it was actually beneficial, and that's when I came into medical school, and I was one of the few females that changed from medical to tech. So I went to, in that time it was called Visual Basic, Microsoft Visual Basic. So I changed, and a lot of people found out.
So here is still in Libya.
Yes,
still in Libya.
Yes,
okay, so you're already, we're talking about
like
university in Libya.
Exactly.
Okay, just to give it like a little bit of a time frame so we understand
exactly.
it.
And part of me changing, because everyone wanted to go to medical school as soon as you got the grades, everyone went there. Everybody wanted their kids to be a doctor, or So no question. If you had good grades, you'd go directly to medical school or engineering.
Okay.
So when computer science was new, not a lot of people took the risk to go in something totally new, computers and all that. So I had the privilege to. It was actually challenging for me to get there because my father had to be convinced. But since I was good at gaming and all that, and it was my portal also that I felt like I could do better navigating with machines than navigating people in hospitals.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I couldn't see myself as a doctor, to be honest.
Okay.
So,
but you knew it before and you stayed in school just because you had to at some point you change, or you just, right? You knew it before you wanted to.
I felt it. I felt like computers was my home. Machines, computers. I was actually good at machines too. Like if the TV, something happened, anything technical, I was the one that everyone was.
You were the factotum.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I felt like I was the machine person, or the computer we say now.
Okay, so here, if I understand correctly, we have Morocco. You moved to Libya. You are introduced to video game because you were like a hothead and doing things. So they need to keep you quiet. They give you video games. You like video games. You play video games. Then from this point, you're 7 until you are 20 something because you are at the university. You change university.
Yes.
And then you talk. And at this point, you are finally in the video game. What was engineering?
Yeah. Well, the thing is. Good that you brought this part, because after the education, I realized that this was an industry where they only accepted men and only qualifications that came from the West. So instead of hiring an IT or technical or person, they would rather bring someone from the States or from Canada, so there was a slight chance for a female to be taking this kind of jobs, technical jobs.
Okay.
So I saw it like it was a dead end there. So I was lucky that my English was good and my computer skills was good. Like at that time I could work with what do you call them, Microsoft Office and all that stuff. So I got a job immediately, and I was working with administration, and I was a personal assistant in a British company, general manager's personal assistant. And I worked also in hotels, and English was a way for me to get into, because not a lot of females had very good English skills in Libya.
Yeah.
And especially with my background that I had freedom to work and so on. So So it was a dead end for me to work with tech as a female in a Middle Eastern and North African country. And after that, that's when the war happened. Like
the Arab Spring War, right? Is the correct word?
Exactly. That was the turning point in my life, because from living in a closed environment, in a closed life, as I mentioned, like everything was limited for a female, blah blah blah, and all of a sudden the war came. I don't want to go into the details of the war, but I found myself outside of the country, having no home, no family around me, and I had to survive. And imagine being this person who was closed in a, let's say, very isolated culturally, to being outside in the world. And I had Moroccan passport and Moroccan nationality, and I couldn't apply for asylum seeking, or what do you call it?
Yes.
Because you have to be from the country
where the war is
to be able to go to Europe, or So I had to do this country hopping. So I traveled in several countries, and I could only live there for this amount of months, where some countries you get to stay 90 days, some of them you get to stay 30 days, and what the passport allows, my Moroccan passport allows me to go to these countries. And I lived in Tunisia, I lived in Nigeria, Ghana, Ivory Coast, I lived in Turkey. It was the most common place I went to a couple of times, but then you had to exit and go back again, And then Brazil, Malaysia, Indonesia, in Jakarta and Bali, and it sounds like crazy now when I just mentioned the list.
Yes, it does. Yes. I'm
I have to go back to during the games. My role model was Lara, Tomb Raider. And
Lara Croft.
Yes, that was like where I saw myself, and because she was like this first role model as a female who was adventurous, risk taker. She wasn't afraid, although she was a female, and because we always judge like strength with muscles and being big, and she was just a regular female who was very adventurous, and she was in these jungles and these places traveling, so on. And I saw her like, I don't see these kind of females in my environment. There's no one like this. But it kind of like, I wanted to embody that in my mind, like since I was playing her, so I was living in that environment in the game. So all of a sudden, when I'm kicked out of the country and I have to survive outside, I kind of channeled this Lara character, and I was like, okay, now there's two ways of looking at this. Either I'm gonna crumble down and feel depressed and see myself as a victim, and just give up. There's a lot of negative scenarios that could have happened. But the only survival mechanism that I could take from the gaming, that I saw life as a game to survive. So, this when you buy a game, you get into the game, you already know there are going to be challenges, hard levels. The levels get harder as you go, and there's a lot of like treasures to gain. There's a lot of like rewards, and then there's a goal at the end. So that keeps you going. And even when you fail, when you jump, now you learn the hack. For example, let's say in Mario, Mario, you're jumping, you fell the first time, you fell the second, the third time, now how to jump to avoid it.
Especially with Mario.
Especially with Mario.
Even the 20th, the 30th time that you repeated, I don't know you, but for me it was like, it was a nightmare. But yes, best game ever, but it was hard.
Yes. And then, you get your mushrooms, and then you jump, and then you get these little turtles and all that, they come and go. Then you get the big bosses. So I kind of like saw life that way to survive. And I also learned from several games, including Sims, how to actually structure your economy, your strategy, because like I said, in my culture, usually men, like fathers and husbands, were the one were doing the economy, earning the money, and females didn't have to worry about these things, at least from what I saw from my background. My parents and my women didn't get to learn so much economical skills, but through the games, you also get your resources, you gather resources. Should I buy this weapon or not? Maybe I should need it for the next level. So, you learn these kind of small hacks, and then the same thing. You get a job, you get the money, and then you start like, should I buy that? Should I do this? So I learned this kind of like economical stuff, the bigger picture, how to plan,
Because otherwise, as a woman, you were not allowed to even think about the money, put it here, just like you were. Okay.
It was taken care of. Everything was taken care of, and the only thing that you had to do is just to cook and clean. So yeah, basically that was what was expected from me in terms of social norms, let's say, social norms as a female in particular cultures.
Okay.
So so surviving alone, I think I was 24, 25 at that time. And then 24, 25, I think. Yeah, approximately. Because that's also the memory. When you're facing challenges, your memory gets so...
I perfectly understand that. I also have like this big gap. I know things I've done, I don't know in which year. Sometimes actually clashes. I say, oh yeah, I was in Brazil from 2003, 2005, life was not easy. Or in Turkey also, I also lived in Turkey. Here. Same as like, okay, which year was it? How old I was? I don't really know. Because you kind of, when you're moving, not just because like someone offered you a job and then you move to another country, but when you just move because you have to,
it's totally different.
It's a different thing. Things happen in a, a finger snap.
Yeah, I actually had like, I was living in the unknown. Like I didn't know each month. I didn't know how the next month is going to be, and that's also how strategic you have to be with your moves, what you're gonna do. I worked several type of jobs using English. I worked with translation. I worked in guide. I worked in all the kind of like easy jobs, but all of them were like jobs that don't give you a permit. You just work there for the sake of working. Anyway, so during that time I had to like save money for the next move, and so on, the flights and so on. And sometimes I got help by friends and so on, but still, most of it I had to do it on my own, because when the country is facing war, everybody is in trouble. Nobody's gonna help you, So I think and this country jumping, as I said, or hopping. Played a big role in my life in ways of like it showed me that you could make it on your own regardless of what's happening, and it became kind of like addictive, that challenges became fun. So I couldn't have like a regular day or a regular week. There was always like, what's next? I need, let's try this, let's do this, maybe this job is going to be better. So if you get into the risk-taking mood, it becomes addictive as a gamer to like challenge yourself more, try this, try that, I can do better. So
wow. Okay. So just once again, so here we are in the moment where you're moving from place to place, from country to country, just to sort of to stay outside Libya, but you cannot get, as we said, you cannot get a permit.
No.
And you're moving, and how long can you stay in each country? 90
the
days?
maximum is 90 days. Yeah,
90
some countries
days.
is only 30. I think Bali was 30 days. I think Malaysia also was only 30 days, but the rest of the countries were 90.
Yeah.
And some countries, they allow you to exit and come back.
Yeah.
Some not.
Yeah.
So you exit, and sometimes they say, no, you have to stay 3 months outside.
3 months outside,
Turkey,
yeah.
I think, changed the laws after that. Yeah. So it was really challenging. But then, now let's go into this is the part where the gaming industry, where I saw myself in the gaming industry, because I have to remember the timeline now. Getting lost to Lara's adventure. It was easy to. I did Lara for a long time.
Yeah, you sounded like one. Yeah.
Until I got this call. I was working actually as a sales representative selling chandeliers to Dubai from Turkey, Dubai and Middle East countries. Yeah.
So selling
chandeliers
from Turkey to Bali.
To Dubai. Sorry.
To Dubai. No. I think you said it right. I am old. Like to Dubai.
Yeah.
No, just to the type of story that we are telling you here. So like selling chandelier from Turkey to Dubai. Please go on. Sorry
yeah,
for.
and I have to remember the story too, like because it's a long timeline as I mentioned. So there I was working, and then I get this phone call from Peak Games. And
Peak Games.
Yes,
Peak Games.
HR
Okay.
of Peak Games calling me. We heard about a girl that I think I mentioned to someone that I was a gamer and gaming helped me or something to the social network. And someone called me. We need someone who can speak Arabic and English and work with us at Peak Games. And we'll give you. I think they offered me a very good salary. Like it was much better than my salary and. Back then, and they were like, we need you now, we're translating games to Arabic and selling them to the Middle East, I think Dubai also, because you know they always like the bigger market is the Gulf countries. And then they said, we will train you. You haven't worked with because it's localization, you know. So they give me this book of localization, and it was like a fast training. And then my job was I became a product manager MENA for a game. I don't know what was the name of the game, but it was in Arabic. It was called Sayf al-Marifa. It means the sword of knowledge.
Sword of knowledge.
Yes, and then you have to, when you localize to a country or a culture that has specific rules or specific, mentality, you have to create the data that is fitting to this audience. So our job was me and two other people, is to translate not just the game, but also change the data to something suitable to the audience, the Arabic audience. And that was my first entry to the game industry. And I started like Googling and searching and creating the data, and then we did the data input and testing as well, because Arabic is very tricky, it's like from the other side, and then as soon as you have a comma or whatever, the whole sentence changed, so it was very challenging to translate. Yes,
so you were translating, not testing
translating some stuff, because the UI and these things are the same, entry, these things are the same, but then the data in the game has to be recreated because it has to fit to the target audience. So we created I think the game that I had, it was just me working on it. The other ones, they had these farmer games and restaurant games or something like that. But each one of us had a game to recreate and to put the data in and so on.
Okay, and this how
from
long
what I remember, because I think this was what I remember.
How long did it last?
It was just a project, unfortunately. And in Turkey, there was also these challenges of getting work permit, because they would rather have local people, and
of course.
So it was challenging there. Anyway, so that was the entry, and then after that I moved to Sweden, and I worked with a small studio called Frozen Games in the north, and I was given the no wait, I have to remember correctly the timeline.
It's hard. I can imagine.
I went to art school in Sweden when I moved to Sweden.
So you moved to Sweden, and this
from Turkey to Sweden after all
you
the
you were like 27, 8, something like
27.
that. 27. Okay,
Yes.
okay. I'm managing to follow the plot here.
That's great.
That's already something.
That's great. Yeah. So I went to art school, and I learned a lot of like art skill. I already had art background because I was a painter and drawer when I was a kid. I was good at that. Apparently, that's what people said. So I was like, okay, what can I do now? Because when you are in a new country, you look at your skills. What can I do here? What can I do with what I have? Okay, I have English, and I have good visual skills from the gaming as well. There's something called the visual intelligence and cultural intelligence. These things I earned or I gained from the gaming industry.
Okay.
The way you navigate stuff, you interact visually, and you can immediately spot the wrong stuff. Like if in a painting or whatever, you could immediately see what's wrong. So I had these skills in me, and within the art school, I could even enhance them even more. So while I was in the art school, I met someone who told me, okay, there's a game studio. I think I met this person through the Swedish language courses. They're called SFE, where when you come as an immigrant, or newcomer or expat or whatever, you learn the language in these classes. And there was I don't remember if he was a colleague or someone I knew back then, who said, okay, there's this studio that is looking for people. If you already have a gaming background and you have artistic skills, we need someone like you. So maybe let's try this. And I think I made a very quick portfolio to show what I can do, and I was immediately hired. And I got, because the studio was small and we were, I think, 3 or 4 people, I was given the title of being a production assistant. And
production assistant, yeah.
From being a product manager in Peak Games, I was a production assistant in Frozen Games. And there was also a huge jump for me, because there I got to learn a lot of new stuff through this company. We were giving space to learn new things. I was sitting with tutorials, and I learned to do UI in Unreal. And I did even animation for UI animation. I was like learning, and that, basically I have that in my character, that I learn quickly, and I would rather learn by doing than sitting and reading through a manual or sitting in a class. So that was good. I could do a lot of stuff within the projects we had. Like I could follow the steps of the project, and I did some 2D art. I worked with UI. I did some UI design. And my manager was very happy about my testing. He's told me that if I would give you something that you were so good at, testing is something I didn't expect you to be very good at. I was like producing bugs like this, like every day I would come with a list. Okay, you guys have to do this and that, and it was fun for me. I would not say that it was fun for the developers, but it was fun for me to find all these mistakes that they had to work on every day because of this like visual skills. Yeah, so it was so I worked there in Frozen Games for about 2 years until I had my maternity leave, and then I had a long period of maternity leave with my 2 kids. And then when the pandemic happened, that was my return to gaming again, because people reached out to me and they said, okay, the game industry had made a huge success right now, and now in the north we're looking for people who have been working with games and have skills or even interest. So I remember my second daughter was very young, and I said, yes, I'm in. I can work from home. I can join. Just give me the projects that I can be part of. I really missed it because it was like quite a long period.
Was long?
Yes.
Years?
Yeah. It was two daughters, so yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. So I came into it's called the Game On, the project. They called and they said, okay, well, now we're gathering people from the whole Nordic countries and especially the north, with the project called Mid Sweden Games. And then we had access to a network where we could collaborate and work with people from different countries. So we did jams, we did collaborated together with other people, even from Oslo, from Stockholm, and people I've never met because of the pandemics. So I've never met those people, but we worked together from abroad through Discord and And then after that, I became a Women in Games ambassador. I opened my own studio as a freelance studio, and I was part in a lot of projects doing like consulting and stuff like that. And then the big jump there again, the second big jump was when they reached out to me and they said, we need someone to tell us more about the game industry, especially as a woman with your history. And I didn't expect it to be this I would not say popular, but I would say to have that much audience or people who were interested to know, because I expected to stand there and maybe 5 or 4 people sitting listening to me. But it was a huge audience. People wanted to hear, what is this industry? How do you get in? What are the chances out there? What are the educations? What are the titles you could do? Because some people, they think only programmers or only, how can I say, designers that can be working with the games. There's a lot of titles and skills that are needed.
A lot of them.
Audio is one of them. Testing, we just mentioned that.
Localization, absolutely. Yeah, there is plenty of things. Even player support, which is a thing that's definitely more recent. customer support for video games, player support is actually a very, very good place to start. And it's definitely, for in the future will be even more. Like, I think it's already like a huge thing, but it will be even more. Do you mind if we take like a minute to drink a glass of water?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, a glass of water. So we're gonna do it like 2 minutes, and we're gonna be back. And we are back. Yes, we are back. And here again still with Hind. Sorry, sometimes I'm flaky. I do mistakes.
Me too. And we're trying to make this as spontaneous as possible.
Spontaneous as possible. That's yes, exactly. For me, it's very important to have it spontaneous. I like to prepare for the interview, but I also try to give us a certain degree of spontaneous. You see, spontaneity or spontaneity. Okay,
yeah, anyway,
to be spontaneous.
They know what we mean.
Spontaneous. Okay, fader. Maybe we'll cut it later. I don't know. No, let's leave it. I like when people laugh at me. And so
it's part of being spontaneous too.
It's part of being spontaneous. At least it is. Like so. I like to be prepared, but it's still good if there is like some room for not knowing and inquiring genuinely. So your story. You now moved to Sweden. You studied something. You are hired to do some jobs here in Sweden. So it feels like this part of the story is the happy final part, right? Where you are at least in happy, as in, I mean, without inquiring how exactly. It was, but I'm sure it was better than Libya or Turkey or moving from country to country, because I know that that is.
It was like, of course, there was this challenge and living in the unknown, but it was also, there was some kind of like positive stuff. You get to see the world, and then you get this boost that you see yourself living in different environments. It gives you a kind of boost. You say, like, I told myself, if I make it here, I can make it anywhere. Okay. So it was like I made it in all these places, and I was like, I can make it anywhere. Now I know myself. I can. You get this kind of like knowing yourself more, or you get more confident with yourself and your skills, and So it's there was of course the bad side, and then there's the good side to it. So I would not regret that. If I would go back to my story, I will never remove anything from it. I will keep all the stuff, the bullying, the bad stuff, I will keep it all, because without these parts, I wouldn't have been me today, So that's one. And then I discovered through this journey that, now I'm using my hand, I discovered through the journey that there is a message in this, especially after speaking in public and people liking the story and telling me, please don't stop talking about this. Please tell more people. More people need to hear this, especially young generation who are also immigrants, or their parents has been immigrants, and they need to hear that they can also change their lives, and if they have dreams, they could always regenerate themselves, find their passion, regardless of games. Because games was one of the things that was actually giving me the boost and giving me this mentality. But it was very inspiring for people who also had nothing to do with games. And I also saw myself being this figure. I didn't have a role model from my background, someone like me in the gaming industry. So they told me, maybe now you are that person. So if you could stand and tell your story and tell how the game industry helped you learn about the world, helped take you out from this cultural limitation and how you saw yourself, how you were before, and how your parents were, or how the environment you lived in, tell the story. Tell people that they can do more than what they think. And then especially for women, and especially for women in this industry, because as I mentioned, that people don't understand, or women don't see themselves in this kind of careers or field. So I felt like, okay, I'm gonna go out now and talk about how the game industry helped me become stronger, helped me gain my confidence, helped me survive, and how I saw myself now working, also creating these projects that are helping probably others. Because my main goal during the pandemics, my main goal that I worked with projects that had to do with mental health, psychology, and I call them games for good. All these games that I was part of, they all had some kind of like human goodwill concept in them.
Okay.
And I felt like, okay, there's a lot of people out there having problems, mental health problems. There's people being bullied, and why can't we do stuff that can target just this group? Because a lot of gamers are actually introverts, and a lot of people who working in games are introverts, and we need people who can speak and people who can like get people together to actually tackle these kind of industry issues that we have. And that's when I saw myself more as a speaker, more as a community person, using my social skills and my story to attract more women to the game industry, to make people change their idea about games, that it's not a stigma, it's not something that your kid is going to be addicted to and stop focusing in school and stuff like that. People need to hear the positive side about the game industry too. So I took this role just naturally, it just happened. And it led to me working in Nordic Games now.
But that's also the reason why somehow I do this podcast, right? I think that people want to hear stories. So the idea is, oh, by the way, stop like here the vent was some generator or something was like going for a while, and I thought, woof, let's see if it goes away at some point. I was like, no, but that's also the reason why I do this. There is people want to hear stories. People want to be inspired. We are in this world where everything happens so fast, and we constantly trying to reach out to know more, to increase our knowledge, to stay tuned, to know everything about the industry, and it's not healthy, and people just want to also do one step back every now and then and hear like a good story, to be inspired. I think can be good, can be better, and also to put the problems that we have in the right give the right size to the problems that we have sometimes. I think that a story like yours also gives a better perspective, that maybe my problem are not as huge, maybe everything can.
One of the things I discovered from telling the story, that I got so much feedback from people that related to me, even though they were like from Mexico or they were from Spain, or they were like, I so relate to this part. I also had this, and I was okay. So actually, the game industry actually has its own community. We're like, all of us have probably played the same games, we lived inside these same games, we had this kind of like similar visual experiences. At the same time, we had similar experiences in our surroundings, that we were like nerdy, we were different, and finding these people, especially when I go on conferences, I always feel I be like, this is my family, this is the family that I have never been this close to, because these people have the same challenges and we get related to each other. That's why I felt like the importance of community in the game industry.
Yes.
Community is very, very important. And that's the role where I see myself, like in few years from now, I see it naturally, like it's something I do it from the heart, more than that I would do it for a career or to upgrade or something that just, I feel it's very needed. And a lot of people out there are isolated. People from, let's say now, we don't want to say just women. There's women, there's the LGBT community, there's a lot of people who feel like
many minorities.
Exactly, minorities. That's what I mean. And having this sense of community, being heard, relating to each other, it's so important. And I think that's what the game industry stands for from the beginning.
You're right. That. Also like video game industry, you choose to be in the video game industry, you don't end up in the video game industry. So there are many industry where I can imagine, let me just say, now maybe I'm saying something completely wrong, but I don't know, pharmaceutical industry. I don't think there is a 7 years old kid that is thinking, I want to be in a pharmacy and working in a pharmacy, or like you become that at some point, because at some point you think, okay, that's a good thing. I'm good with chemistry. You're already older. I'm good with chemistry. University, I will take pharmaceutical university. So but video game, it's something that you know it. It's very hard
like
to
a
find
passion.
some. Yeah, it's not the passion. It's hard to find someone that didn't play video games and then is in the video game industry.
No, I
Right?
relate to you. And they have, if not, they have to have something that got them into something artistic. It could be music making, it could be art, it's the art. I think there's the only thing that relates most of people in the game industry is artistic talents. From my perspective, or people that I met, they would say that, okay, I was making music and suddenly I ended up making music in the games, or someone that was just an artist and then just an artist, and then they were needed in certain projects and then they found themselves. But there is the passion behind it, and if someone just ended up in the gaming industry, they wouldn't thrive in it. They would not be successful and make good projects if they didn't have the passion behind it.
Yes.
You know, so if I have my company now and I need to hire people, I would rather hire a half-skilled person with a huge passion than a skilled person who doesn't have the passion for the game, because the creativity lies in the passion for whatever it is.
That's
whether
true.
It's game or
That is
it's
true.
the passion that drives you to make good projects, I think.
Do you mind if we make like a little bit of a jump and we talk about women in games? Because like your story, of course, it's great. It's really formidable. Like it's incredible what you did, and to some extent I can relate to
I
like
tried
a
to
troubled
make it
past.
fast now. I didn't want to go
know,
through the
I know. You were very good. You were very good. So because and I appreciate it. So I asked before. Let's talk about your story. That's gonna be like the 70% of the show. But then we also try to talk about a little bit about women in games. We both are very much in line with the type of principles that we have and what we support. For me, it's obviously it's something that we should support more and more. The whole Women in Game initiative. Together, also we support the LGBTQ community. But she like me. She feels that these are very important things, and she is very strong in Women in Games. She's doing something, and of course her story, starting with her story, I'm talking to them, but sorry, with your story,
I'm listening
starting
to
with
you.
your story, you can be an inspiration. And I think I've heard not that many people that could be such a great example for young girls, because that's exactly I was talking already in one of my previous episodes with Nicolina about, are we doing enough? Are we reaching out to the young girls somehow? Are we doing that, or we keep talking about that among us?
Yeah.
Or we're doing something? And I see
Solution.
that you are doing something, and I like. You want to tell us that?
Yeah,
about that?
yeah. Well, it was like this. I just mentioned also that I found myself, I stumbled into this role of mine that it was like, okay, this is your thing. This is what you're needed for. You're needed for this part. And I spoke in schools because I believe in that. If we want to attract more women to games, or even technology in general, we have to start with an early age. So I spoke in schools, and I spoke about my story, and I spoke about how games are not just fun.
How do you find the schools? Do they find you, or you find them?
I was lucky that I spoke in one event in Härnösand, and then from there was people in the audience that were like teachers and people who worked in education, and from there were people asking me, what do you think about this? And as soon as they mentioned it, I was like, yes, sure, because this is why I'm here. I'm here to tell the story because the story should be heard.
Yeah.
And the audience that it can affect much more than anyone, because people are sitting there listening to me, they already have their jobs, they already have their careers decided. But who needs to hear this are the new generation who haven't even thought about the gaming industry as a path, as a career path, for example. Just like me when I was young, I've never thought that gaming is a job, working in game industry is a job. And that's where it started. And from one school to another another event, and I'm also involved in women in tech in the city where I live. So we have like sometimes like these women gatherings, and we talk about issues of women in technology issues, because it's also still a dominant male dominant work. Like it's usually men, and there's a lot of like issues to be tackled there. So we have these gatherings, and I'm always involved in these gatherings because I represent the gaming industry. We're also creative tech. We're also technology.
Yeah.
You know, you can't have like an IT conference and then you only have like specific. We're also part of it. Although we are like more entertainment wise or more entertaining, but there are a lot of games that are made for, let's say, psychology. There are games that are. I remember this VR game that was made for. I saw it in one of the research. Was for people with burn injuries. That when they are like when they are putting the medicine on them on their injuries, they put this VR where they could see themselves in cold environments. So they will be like seeing themselves in snow. You know, have you seen Frozen, the movie?
Yeah.
Kind of like that, while they're being they're changing their
the bandages and etc. So like
this is one of the things that games are good for. There are games that also for people who are I think people with dyslexia and so memory games that are good for people. And I've read a lot of researches that says that the more because gaming is actually like a brain gym. You know, the more you use it, the more you like play games, the more you play puzzles and, you know, these games even with words and stuff like that, the more you keep your brain interactive and active, you know.
Like I always make this point that I prefer my children to play video game rather than to stay in front of a cartoon, because like it's very passive. You're just watching and that's it. Brain activity. So I prefer them to play a video game. Obviously, with everything, before you even mentioned, right, that people say, you know, the video games are bad. People have this feeling, you know, still, even though it's 2024, there is this. It happens. People say it. It's a big stigma. But obviously, for me, the only problem is when a parent just forget about that is happening, and you let your children play for 6-7 hours every day. That is as damaging as any other activity that is like in front of a screen.
Yeah,
of course.
This is one of the questions I get asked in schools.
Okay.
Yeah, teachers and they ask me this kind of question. I always get questions, and this is one of the main ones. How can we prevent our kids from being addicted to games, and how, you know, and I always say that they have to have other hobbies aside so that they don't get only their dopamine or their, you know, this only from the games, because then that's how you get addictive. So they had to have some other activity. I, on the other hand, didn't have that privilege to be to go play football or, you know, use my physical movements or activities, but then I had to live it through the gaming. But your kids doesn't have to do that, you know. They can have either skiing activities or you know, football, or, you know, skiing is popular where I am, so so they have to always have other stuff aside, and then always limit their time of gaming, and also use gaming, because games, there's different type of games. Use the games that can help them learn new things and navigate and see themselves in different stuff, because I encourage Sims a lot. I don't know why I'm not a big fan of Sims, but there are other games that are also good for kids. I think they call it they don't call it just gamification, they call it also playification games. And I think it's going to be a big thing in the future in terms of education, that we would rather play and learn through interacting than just reading a plan.
Yes, of course.
It
works for everyone. I think, like, and that's where, so that part of your work and trying to be an evangelist for this cause is already, as you said, you go to schools, What kind of, I have two questions. The first one is government. Did you actually get involvement with governments? Do they ask you to be involved somehow? Do they ask for future plans on how to teach, like how to make games? What is that? Where is that?
Government, not yet. We're trying to get there. Schools was one of the big things when you see like teachers themselves thinking that this is something good we have to bring to the kids, and as I mentioned, it was also a big important topic for kids that had other backgrounds, people who related to me as a person coming from outside of Sweden, living in Sweden. So it was good to use this topic in certain audience, okay. Young audience. But government-wise, I don't think so much. But we can use always Women in Games as an organization to make noise and drag more people to see like how important this is, how we can use games as a tool to solve problems, to tackle like let's say gender issues and environmental issues. Now that I mentioned this, I was part of a project that was made for it was called Lemon Apocalypse, and it was made it actually won a game jam this game.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it was made to make the young youth cautious about the environment. The more you produce, the more you buy, the more you consume, the more you destroy your environment. And in this game, during the playing, the more you misuse your resources, you see the environment changing around you until it turns like apocalypse.
Oh wow!
So okay. This is like one of the stuff, and I can make a list of these kind of games. Right now I can't remember them all because I'm so happy meeting you today. So my brain is just
as if
But we can put links to all these things that we just mentioned. The studies that I just mentioned. There's also like studies showing how good games are for the brain, even for old people to avoid Alzheimer. There's a lot of good positive things that we have to be better at bringing up. And Women in Games, I don't want Women in Games to feel that they have this that only if you are in a screen or only if you have a mic you have the spotlight to speak about Women in Games. You can start with your neighborhood. You can start with the people around you. Maybe my daughter speaks in school and said my mom works with game, which is when she starts saying that, then people, that's a job.
Cool, yeah.
And then from our social cycle, and then it expands. One tells the other, and so on. And you don't have to like sit and write about it every day. Just the more you tell people, the more you tell about the projects you're doing, especially the projects you're doing, and maybe share more about it. Because I think women probably, this is one of the things I think is challenging, is that the press is kind of like greedy when it comes to women doing big projects. If I don't want to be like very very like men against women, but I feel like when women are involved in some projects, we don't hear so much about their accomplishments. So we want them to be more proud and be like, oh, I was part of this big project. And even if you were part of HR, or maybe you were in the office doing the economical stuff, but you were part of the company doing the game. So you don't have to make a game to say I'm working with games. You can, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I got kind of lost in bringing the point. But
no.
Yeah. So anyone working with games should be proud and should tell about what they're doing, and that's how you get more people to get to talk about it and to see it as a job. It's not just fun. This is what I'm telling everybody. This is not just an entertainment. It's not a casino game. It's not, because when I remember when I first said to people that I work with games, they all assumed that it was casino. And then I was like, no, it's not. The Mario and Mario is the first one you bring up when you try to
Mario, Angry Birds. These are the things that people understand.
Candy Crush.
Yes. These are the thing. I think we're getting like close to the end, but I still wanted to. So before I even ask this question, so thank you for doing what you're doing. First of all, here in Sweden and in all Europe. I really wish that it's gonna be that more women are inspired by you about doing what you do. Like, that I really hope this Women in Game, we're gonna hear more and more, not just only among you girls, but like in the video game industry. I would like to see more. I don't know exactly what exactly could be done, but
no, sorry to interrupt, but now that you say it, I have to also tell that we have a huge event now in the Women International Day, 8th of March, here in Stockholm. I shared that on my LinkedIn if anyone is following me.
Yes, we want it.
Yeah, so we are trying, we're doing things, and even in my current job right now at Nordic Games, the Nordic Games conference this year is going to have a huge Women in Games side event. So we are looking for sponsors, we're looking for partnerships, and we need more people to get involved. And I was thinking also, when we have these side events of Women in Games, people who want to hire women, they should come. You want to have more women in the game industry? Okay. Come and meet these women who are interested in the game industry. It should be also not just like, oh, we're gathering here to drink coffee and chat. We're here to also share our skills. Maybe you have in your company you need some particular skill that I know someone who could fit there. So, and then it doesn't have to be only Women in Games. You could go there to hire someone. You could go there to look for specific skills or, as I mentioned, professions. So even men are welcome to come to these events, and just meet the professional people behind the person, because we always have this. LinkedIn, you see the picture, you see the name, but you don't know what they're doing exactly. What's their skills? Hear their challenges. Get to know them more. So Women in Games should be more than just an event or a title. We should do more.
Okay, it's as usual. It's inspiring. Yes, I will consider this actually as a good idea. It's a good suggestion.
You're
Let's
welcome.
come to us and talk to us about what
we're doing.
What we can do for each other, how we can collaborate, how can we hire, or what's there to be done together. That's a very good point. Thank you for that. So just to wrap up your story, we heard an incredible story today, of redemption, of passion, of challenges, of staying afloat with the idea of video games. And I heard this a couple of times. Video games saved my life, but this is really the case. This is really the case,
really,
right?
Because sometimes I wonder how my mental state would have been if I didn't have this mentality of the adventure of Lara again.
Yeah.
Going back to her. If I didn't have the mentality, I don't know. There could be a lot of bad scenarios. But the resilience that I gained from the game.
Resilience, yes.
I gained it from the game industry, that I could see life as a game. And it would be funny. Have you seen the movie Slumdog Millionaire?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know how his life, like everything that he'd gone through, was like he could answer those questions at the end because of what he'd gone through. For me, it's like the games that I played prepared me for the end of the, for the survival outside of my comfort zone. So that was like a short. If I would put it short, it would be that.
That would be
that.
Yes. Going through hardness, it's the thing. It really makes you stronger, right? It really forges you. And
that's something we have in common, because from your story, you also. That's why we clicked immediately.
Yeah. My story. One day, it would be like auto episode of like, I just need to find an interviewer. Just that's it.
I'm here if you want to. I just have to listen to all your podcasts to learn from you, and then I will do the last. Maybe you should do it in Malmö if you come and visit us. We have this huge conference that you should.
Nordic Games. Yeah. Nordic Games is my favorite event of the year, the one in Malmö, and I've been there every year apart from during the pandemic. But this year probably we'll have to skip it
because it. Oh no.
Yeah. This is gonna be probably the first year that I skip.
It's the 20 years anniversary this year. It's going to be bigger than all the other events because we're changing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're changing the whole concept. We're like, it's like a rebirth of the brand. So, and the program and everything. So you really should try.
Even more.
You should really try.
To drink. I gotta do.
You really should. Now that I became part of the conference, you don't want to come.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Yes. Okay. Let's see.
So yeah.
Okay, and I hope I will meet you there, or we're gonna meet again for sure. So I think this is the. Oh, I was like hitting with my ring. Sorry.
It's the excitement.
It's the excitement. So I really hope that that you guys enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. I think that at least today we have learned a lot, or personally I have learned a lot. And
so.
No, indeed,
I hope
indeed.
So, I feel.
No, indeed, you're an amazing person with an amazing story, and also one thing that kind of impressed me is when you say that you were 7, 8, they put these video games in front of you, and you were thinking about like how to save the money for one thing for another. It's I know that you're saying it now, but still it illustrates how you were already wise at that age. While I don't know, I was a complete idiot until I was 18 probably, or even later than that. So, and that whenever I hear people that they were already thinking another way, because you were fighting with your family, you were fighting with what you had around, you were saying, why do I have to be this? Why am I... why do I need to keep within these boundaries, which are very restrictive? Why do I need to cook and clean?
Yeah.
Why can I not do what the boys do? And that for me, it's already maybe it's because you were in that situation. I don't know.
It made me question all the gender roles really early, and that because it was like I felt everything was planned already for me, and I didn't fit in that box. So, and then at the end of the day, like when I became really a mother and I became a housewife, or what do you call it? Then I could do both. So you can never, and I say that in my culture now, like I am actually trying to change a lot of stuff in my background. And I say like, you see, look at me, I could do this and I could survive the war and I could survive all the stuff. And I, at the end, became eventually the mother, the home person. So
But at my own terms.
Yeah, in my own terms, exactly. Yeah, exactly. In my own terms was the
when I want, with who I want, and like at the age I want,
and where I want to as
where
well.
I want, exactly. So, thank you very much, Hind.
Thank
it was
you
nice
so
having
much.
you,
Thank
and
you.
talk to you soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.